Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ruminate This with Agrarian Solutions. Join us as we explore ruminant nutrition and the impact of mycotoxins. Here, we challenge your curiosity and explore new industry insights and research to optimize your herd's health and performance. All right. Hey, welcome, everybody, to another edition of Ruminate This with Agrarian Solutions. I'm your host, Scott Zehr, and we are going to be talking about culture today and the impact of culture on performance. Culture has become a buzzword in really all industries, but it's talked about a lot. We've talked about it on this platform in a few different ways, but I want to dive into what it actually looks like. How do you tell if your culture is impacting your herd's performance? If you asked if you ask the average dairy producer what matters most for, say, calf success, you'll hear stuff like colostrum, right? Quality, cleanliness, consistency. Consistency is a big one with calves, and nutrition, right? And those are all correct. But I don't believe it's just what we do. It's who's doing it. You guys have heard me say before, I think this idea of bringing back people to people, bringing the person back into the conversation is a very important part. It's part of my mission. But it's not just what you do, it's who is doing it, why they're doing it, and how consistently it's done. Yes, calf care is biological, but it's also very operational and very human. And so today, I'm actually going to be diving into what we live at Agrarian Solutions every day and something that Agrarian Solutions has been built around, which is our core values. So our core values, if you guys have followed along in these episodes, the acronym is RISE: Relational, Integrity, Strategic, and Excellence. So why does this matter to your farm's culture and performance? And I'm going to be using the calf program as kind of the example. But I believe those four core values are what intuitively separates farms that raise healthy calves from farms that raise resilient, high-performing future cows. So this episode, again, is going to be about people, principles, protocols, and the synergy between those three determines the future of every calf you touch. So the human factor. So you can take two farms with, let's say, the same genetics, same colostrum, same milk replacer, the same feeders, same everything, and still get a completely different result. Why? Because calves live inside a world that we create for them. Even Cornell will tell us that calf management success is more about human behavior than animal behavior in a lot of ways. Denkovic, they've got, they're saying the same thing, right? The biggest variable in calf health isn't the calf, it's the person that's feeding the calf. I think one of the cool things I thought of when I think of that is that calves don't experience protocols, they experience people. And that's why I think RISE matters, because RISE isn't just values, but it's almost like a management system for human behavior. I'm not trying to get too psychological on us, but work with me here. So let's look at relational. If relational means you are pouring yourself into something, right? Relational as in a relationship. The person in charge of your calf program has a relationship with their calves. And you can't manage an animal that you don't notice. So I don't think of relational as being soft or emotional. I think it means attuned. A relational feeder notices when there's 2 ounces left in the bottle. They're the ones that catch the subtle dehydration, sees isolation in behavior. They spot the earliest signs of scours. They know the normal rhythm of every calf they touch, in every group, and every pen. The things I just referenced are what Cornell calls the quiet signals of stress. And I think this is what separates great operations from average ones. It's not necessarily money or facilities as much as it is attention, presence, and consistency. A relational culture says that every calf matters and every calf gets seen. So I'm going to break this down into two different farm scenarios, farm A, farm B. And these are based on farms that I have visited in my career within the last couple of years, actually. And so I think you'll start to see the contrasting difference as we walk through this. So let's start with farm A. We're going to call this farm A 2 shifts and 2 different outcomes. Farm A had a very strong standard operating procedures, excellent genetics, facilities were decent. By decent, I mean more than above average, but maybe not in the top 5% I've ever seen. And both shifts of calf feeders followed the protocols, like to a T. And we're actually able to track that because of their camera system. But the difference is that our quote unquote A team, they didn't just feed calves, they noticed calves, right? They lingered a little bit. They kind of read the room, if you would. They read behavior. They picked up on the almost imperceivable cues that calves show us when they're starting to get sick. They observed all those things and they connected the dots. They had integrity to the calf, not just the task at hand, is how I would describe it. So let's talk about the other shift of calf feeders. For all intents and purposes, and I'm not trying to be demeaning here, but let's call them the B team. Every single one of them, good workers, hard workers, the type of workers we want pretty much almost in every aspect of our dairy. They followed the protocol to a T. But the reason I say the A team showed integrity to the calf, not just the task, is because the B team showed high levels of integrity to the task, but not to the animal itself. They were lacking the relational aspect. And it showed up with more scours caught late, more dehydration, more inconsistent growth, and more variability. Same farm, same inputs, 2 different cultures, 2 different destinies. And to me, that was such a crazy thing to work through. But it was just like we had 1 or 2 people on the first, on the A team of feeding calves that were just so in tune to what the calves were telling them. And it wasn't that the second shift didn't do a great job because they followed everything to a T. Now, this other dairy that I reference here, we're going to call it Farm B. They didn't have an A team and a B team, but they did have 2 different shifts of people that took care of calves. And this farm, I would say A team squared would be a better way to describe their program. Farm B built their program around the people. They hired intentionally. They trained even more intentionally, and they aligned their people intentionally. And their calves were just different. Uniform, very strong, very low treatment rates, high performance, more than doubling birth weight by weaning. And the outcomes became predictable. And so I think the relational care aspect of this, relational aspect, is that relational care builds trust. It builds consistency, lower stress, and higher outcomes. And that kind of the relational aspect of being relational with the calf really lays the foundation for everything else in the program, the integrity, the strategic, and the excellence. So speaking of integrity, I think one of the best definitions I've ever heard of integrity is, what do you do when nobody's looking? But in relation to our calf program, integrity isn't just checking all the boxes like the B team from Farm A. It's protecting the future of the cow. So think of, a lot of people think integrity is honesty, and that's true. But in calf care, I think integrity is practical. Integrity is the difference between a calf getting what she technically needs and getting what she actually needs. And I think some examples of that would be integrity means testing the colostrum, actually weighing the milk replacer, not eyeballing it, cleaning the bottles, not just rinsing them and hoping for the best, documenting treatments as they happen, not having the attitude of, I'll write it in later, feeding the full amount, not shaving or cutting corners just because you're behind for the day or something, and sticking to the standards, especially and even when nobody's watching. Cornell has said it clearly that small shortcuts repeated over time do more damage than major mistakes. And actually, Farm A that I described earlier, their 2 shifts demonstrate that statement perfectly. The A team lived integrity to the calf, every feeding, every detail, every calf. The B team lived integrity to the compliance of the job. They did the job extremely well, but they fell short of protecting the calf's future. I don't think integrity is necessarily about rules. It's about commitment. It's about commitment to the calf, the system, and the outcome. And I think a lot of this, like we intuitively know, those of us that are in the dairy industry, that work on farms or with farmers within calf programs, I think you're probably connecting the dots in your head of, oh yeah, that's why, like, I know this person's calf program is so good because of that person that leads the team. But this is kind of like the blueprint behind why it's so good. And when that integrity is strong, we see it in lower treatment rates, cleaner barns, more uniformity between calves, better growth, better weaning transitions, stronger heifers, better lifetime performance. Like the integrity piece in your calf program and your people having integrity for the calf literally is the backbone to when Dr. Roth says day 1, week 1, month 1, whatever happens during that phase affects that calf for the rest of its life. That's where the integrity piece is such a big deal. Strategic. I want you to think about the fact that success is not accidental. In any phase of life and industry and business, rarely is success accidental. It's designed. Now, you could maybe argue that sometimes we don't see the design that created the success and we attribute it to somebody got lucky or they backed their way into success. But believe me, it's designed. So if relational is the heart and integrity is the backbone of calf raising, I would say strategic is the brain. Strategic calf care is intentional. It's a day 1 protocol, a week 1 protocol, a month 1 protocol, feeding calendars, weaning timelines, documentation systems, roles defined clearly, expectations that are visible and consistent. Pre-weaning growth weight is the number 1 predictor of lifetime yield. That came from Denkovi. Cornell pretty much says the same thing, right? Calves that double birth weight by weaning outperform for life. But you don't double birth weight on accident. You don't back your way into elite calf growth or accidentally stumble into it. It's planned, it's designed, and you have to execute it. A non-strategic farm The feeding times are a little inconsistent. We get the milk replacer mixed appropriately most of the time. Bedding is added when we need it to be. The starter is refreshened when somebody remembers to do it. Weaning becomes something that's too subjective. I would say that weaning strictly by a calendar is maybe not the best approach either, but complete subjectivity when it comes to weaning creates a lot of inconsistencies. The treatments become inconsistent. And those non-strategic calf programs that aren't really thought out. When you get invited, like I do, to go visit a dairy and evaluate a part of the system that's struggling, and you start asking some questions to the people that are closest to the situation, not only do they not, like they don't understand why the thing is happening, but they have no real insights as to why some of the calves are struggling. Nobody's emotionally invested into the program. Now you contrast that with what I see on the more strategic farms, the strategic calf programs. The feeding times are the same every single day. Everything is weighed properly, mixed properly. Bedding happens on a schedule. Starter feeds happen on a schedule. They get refreshed routinely. Ventilation routines, that's a big one. The ventilation is always properly maintained and is always up to speed. The weaning program is more structured. And you may have that one person on the team that is so attuned to the individual calf's need that they're able to make decisions on individual calves as to whether or not they can graduate and be weaned or not. Maybe they're held back. Maybe they go a week early. But the program itself is structured. It's not that everything is objectively done by the calendar. It's that there's a lot less subjectivity that goes into weaning. The health logs are complete and unified. You can look up the data and trust it. And the outcomes are predictable. Strategy is alignment, and alignment is consistency, and consistency in calf care is how we actually get to success, right? Let's look at excellence for a minute. Excellence isn't really perfection. I would say it's standards. So excellence in calf rearing is not trying to be perfect. Excellence is refusing to be mediocre. Excellence is the clean bottles, the deep bedding, accurate mixing, consistent routines, honest records, proactive management. Excellence is the mindset behind every high output herd. Every high output herd I've been on in the last 12 years of my professional career, excellence is the mindset behind the herd. It's also the mindset behind us at Agrarian Solutions. When we say defend and protect for a lifetime. When a farm embraces excellence, it gives calves what they crave biologically: consistency, cleanliness, predictability, and stability. And actually, what I have found in some of the best cultures on farms is that excellence becomes contagious. When one person raises their standard, the whole barn rises with them. And when it comes to the culture of the farm, you almost never get complete buy-in around being excellent all the time by everybody on the staff. But it does take one person to take that step. And you can kind of evaluate the people that don't fit your culture by how long they take to adopt that excellence mindset. and maybe they need to be counseled or even replaced. So there's one more farm I'm going to talk about, and we're going to call that Farm C, the transformation. And this is a real story, folks. Farm C, they did not buy new equipment. They didn't change nutrition first. They did not renovate facilities. They only changed people, culture, and standards, and essentially implemented relational integrity, strategic, and excellence without ever saying the words. And the owner told me something that I'll never forget. As long as I'm in this, as long as I'm doing this, he said, I thought we had a calf problem, but we had a people problem. And as soon as we fix the people, the calves basically fix themselves. And that to me is a RISE culture implemented in your calf program. So if you want better cows on your farm, yes, it's important to focus on nutrition and facilities, genetics. I had one farmer tell me one time that genetics is the one thing that affects every aspect of your herd. And I would say today I'm going to push back on that. And I'm going to say if you want better cows, start with better people. Calf success isn't luck. It's also not magic. And it's not something that only elite farms achieve. Calf success is a reflection of people, culture, protocols, and standards. And I think if you look at it, RISE is the blueprint. Relational means you notice the calf. Integrity means we do right by the calf. Strategic, we plan for the calf. And excellence, raise your standards for the calf. So my challenge to you folks today is, which part of RISE is strongest on your farm, and which part is holding your calves back? I'll say that again. Which part of RISE is strongest on your farm, and which part is holding your calves back? Name it, own it, change it. If I've learned anything through just even assembling this episode, but thinking about these farms that I get to visit, when people rise, the calves rise. When calves rise, heifers rise. When heifers rise, the whole herd rises. And when the whole herd rises, the business follows. So at Agrarian, we don't just defend and protect calves for a lifetime. We defend and protect the entire system that raises them. And that's why I enjoy doing this podcast. I would love to hear feedback from you on this episode. Feel free to reach out anytime, podcast@agrsol.com. That's podcast@agrsol.com. Thank you for listening again to Ruminate This. I'm going to send you off with a challenge, and that is go rise. Go rise, and let's see what happens next in your culture. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Ruminate This with Agrarian Solutions. Look for our next episode in 2 weeks.